Hello and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Douglass Sports Show. I am your host, Corey Douglas. This show will be featured on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube and give me a follow on Instagram and Twitter at TheMrDouglass. Alright, so on today's episode, I'm going to go ahead and update y'all on the quarantine, how I'm quarantining over here. I know the state of Texas is opening up tomorrow. Y'all have fun with that. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here at the house. They're not about to make a test dummy out of me. I'm actually about to finish week 7 working at home. Still loving it. Only got gas twice. But the main objective of this episode is to go over the Cowboys draft. A lot of the experts out there say that they nailed it. And I'm going to walk you through kind of each pick and kind of what I think about their prospects for the upcoming season, if we have one. But before I do that, I definitely want to send out my condolences to the Prescott family. On the morning of the first round, his brother Jace passed away. Dak's a guy that, he's experienced a lot of loss throughout his life. Obviously, his mom passed away when he was younger. So definitely my condolences go out to the Prescott family. Cowboys Nation's behind you. And yeah, that's really all I have on that. But I definitely wanted to do that before I jumped into the draft. All right, so I'm going to get to the draft, but I also want to go over just the Cowboys offseason in general and kind of what I was thinking going into the draft as far as needs and, some of the key losses that they had. Of course, Byron Jones went off to Miami. I think that was kind of known that he wasn't going to be back. The Cowboys really never prioritized him, honestly. So I think they were willing to go in a different direction there to where, they had a plan in place for the draft where they were just going to go ahead and go and try to find the next Byron Jones. And then they lost Robert Quinn, who I personally thought would be back, but the Bears offered him more money. So that left a couple of holes at corner. The defensive line was a question mark going into the draft. I had some concerns at linebacker with the health of Leighton Vander Esch. They definitely had a hole at safety, which they did not address in the draft, which we'll get to while discussing a couple of the picks that they had later. They had somewhat of a hole at center, although I felt personally that they had enough depth to overcome that. You'll see by one of the draft picks that wasn't the case. They created more competition, which I guess is never a bad thing. And wide receiver was a bit of a hole as well. Randall Cobb went off to Houston. That would have been a nice piece to have back, but I'm feeling pretty confident in what they've done to replace Cobb at this point, and you'll see that with my excitement with the first round pick for the Cowboys. The first round pick for the Cowboys, Ceedee Lamb, and that was my dream coming into the draft. I was like, I want Ceedee Lamb with this offense, but I didn't think there was any way that he would get there. So let's fast forward to the draft. The draft starts. First 10 picks are made. No receivers taken off the board. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe. But then, there's still teams like the Raiders, the Jets, the Broncos, the 49ers. Teams there that actually have probably a bigger need at receiver than the Cowboys. So I'm still thinking there's no way Ceedee Lamb drops. So then, the Raiders at number 12, they come in, the pick comes in, it's Henry Ruggs, the third. So that's another guy I had on my board that the Cowboys might want to take if they were going to go the receiver route. But I'm not upset at that because at that point, Ceedee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy still on the board. So then, a couple more picks go by. The Broncos on the board now. They're on the clock. Pick comes in, Jerry Jeudy. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Y'all can have Jerry Jeudy. Ceedee Lamb is still on the board. At that point, I'm feeling really good because Atlanta is at 16, and because they have Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, I'm thinking, okay, they're probably not going to pick a receiver. And in fact, I'm 99% sure that they're not going to pick a receiver. The pick comes in, it's the Clemson cornerback who was also mocked to the Cowboys in some drafts, which would have been a bit of a reach there at that point. So they make that pick. I'm like, cool. The only people that can mess this up now is the Cowboys. Are you going to leave the best player at the board because it's not one of your, I would say, top 3 needs? Or are you going to take the best player, which is, at that point, Ceedee Lamb, the receiver? And I'm going to be honest with you. I thought they were going to go the wrong decision there. I didn't think they were going to pick the receiver. I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I see it. It's the pick for the Cowboys is going to be Ceedee Lamb. And I'm like, All right, let's go. Let's go. We about to put 30 plus on everybody. Let's get it. So then once I get off that emotion, the high of that pick, I start thinking forward to kind of the season and kind of like, how is this going to play out? You have Amari Cooper, you have Michael Gallup, who both had over 1,100 yards this past season in 2019. And now you incorporate Ceedee Lamb, who had over 1,000 yards his last 2 years in college, combined for 25 touchdowns. And in 2019, he had 21 yards per catch. And I'm like, oh man, this is about to be a party. But then what can mess it up? So I'm thinking like the numbers look fine as far as like Dak, 30 touchdowns, only 11 picks, 4,900 passing yards. All that's fine. I'm not sure the exact number that the Cowboys should be scoring offensively, but I'll just put it this way. In week 16 against Philadelphia, they scored 9 points. And you can walk back through like the Bills game, the Bears game, the Saints earlier in the season of games where the offense didn't play well. That's no longer acceptable. I think people think I hate Dak, which I don't. I just feel like he needs a lot of help. And him holding out and playing hardball like he's Patrick Mahomes, it's just not acceptable for me. And also, before I go on to round 2, I definitely want to talk about this fascination with Jerry Jones and the number 88. Lamb said that he was going to be rocking the number 10 this upcoming year. And then Jerry comes out in his post-game or his post-draft press conference and says he wants Lamb to wear the number 88. And I'm just like, man, Jerry, let the dude pick his number. I am tired of the 88 tradition with the Cowboys. Like Drew Pearson, Michael Irvin, Dez Bryant, all great receivers. But if a guy wants to create his own legacy with his own number, let the man do it. Yeah, it's not a huge deal, but I would rather let him start his own legacy with the number 10 if that's what he wanted to do. Trevon Diggs. He's a cornerback out of Alabama. He's actually only played cornerback for 3 years now. He started off as a receiver, which I think actually helps and benefits him as far as movements and knowing kind of what the receivers are thinking, kind of before they're even thinking it almost, just because he has that mentality of being a receiver. And then coming out of Alabama, playing under Nick Saban in that environment can do nothing but help you as a prospect. And the interesting thing about that is, about this pick is, Trevon Diggs was a name mentioned with the Cowboys that they were going to take in the first round. So to get him at 51 in the second round is incredible. It's an extreme value. And I think Trevon Diggs comes in immediately and is competing for a starting job. And like I mentioned, they didn't take a safety in the draft, so I think there's some maneuvering going around there with Chidobe Awuzie. His transition to safety is coming soon. I know that was just reported a couple days ago, but it's something that's been pretty much in the works for months. So yeah, I love that pick. Could have been a first round pick, get him at 51, great value. Let's go to round number 3. DeVontae Gallimore, defensive tackle out of OU. That was a name mentioned that they would take in the second round. So they got him in the third round. Everything I read about this guy is he's a high motor guy. He's a play to the whistle, and he has extremely good hands. He's very active. The one thing that some scouts pointed out was that he has to play lower and avoid letting the offensive lineman get under his pads. So that's definitely something that I'm sure will be a focus for the defensive coaches. But overall, that is an A pick for the Cowboys. They definitely needed to beef up the defensive line like they have, during the offseason with Gerald McCoy, Dontari Poe. They signed Aldon Smith, and they're hoping that Randy Gregory comes back and gets reinstated. So yeah, more beef on the defensive line, always a good thing. Reggie Robinson II out of Tulsa. He's a cornerback. He's another long corner. I think what you'll notice with Diggs and Robinson is that they're both long, they're rangy. They're about 6'1", 205, somewhere in that build, and that's kind of the transition that the Cowboys have made as far as what they want to see with their cornerbacks. In 41 career games at Tulsa, Reggie Robinson had 34 pass deflections, 3 INTs, and 3 fumble recoveries. So another thing that you'll see between him and Diggs is their ball skills are, I think, going to be an improvement from what we've seen at cornerback in previous years for the Cowboys. So yeah, I think another A pick for the Cowboys. Cowboys actually traded up with the Philadelphia Eagles to draft their Wisconsin center, Tyler Biadasz. I gotta be honest, I'm not in love with this pick. Of course, the last time the Cowboys drafted a Wisconsin center, it worked out. I felt like the Cowboys had enough depth on the offensive line to where they didn't need to, spend another resource in that department. Give the Cowboys a B on this one. Now, I'm giving the Cowboys a B on this pick because there are some concerns with Biadasz as far as health, his ability to hold up as a pass blocker. All the scouts say at this point that his run blocking is far more advanced than his pass blocking. So it's going to be an interesting competition at center. The Cowboys still have Joe Looney, who filled in for Travis Frederick in 2018 when Travis Frederick missed the entire season. Connor McGovern, who they drafted out of Penn State last year, is expected to be in that competition. So if he can go in and win the job, cool. I'm not in love with it, but maybe it works out like it did with the last Wisconsin center. Bradley Anae out of Utah. Now, this pick is probably one of the best value picks of the entire draft for any team. This guy was expected to go in the third, fourth round. He dropped to the last pick of the 5th round, in part due to he had a poor combine. The Cowboys would be quick to point out that Terrell Suggs also had a poor combine, and he turned out okay. But the one thing that stands out to me about Nye is this guy had 30 sacks in college. So he's obviously a very productive player. His Utah coaches say that he never stops working. He's always trying to get better. So I definitely love that pick. So I'm giving that pick an A. Quarterback Ben DiNucci out of James Madison. So obviously he went to James Madison, so there's not a whole lot of tape that I could find on him. However, some of the scouts say that he's a very accurate quarterback. He has the ability to use his legs. And there's actually one clip I saw where he's out there trucking defensive guys to get first downs on crucial plays. In 2019, he had 30 total touchdowns and 4,000 total yards. He's going to be in competition with Cooper Rush for the backup quarterback position unless the Cowboys go against what they've done pretty much this entire time and go get an actual backup quarterback that has experience. Andy Dalton got cut recently. Cam Newton's still out there. So if they don't go the veteran route, DiNucci will definitely be in competition with Cooper Rush. And that completes pretty much the draft recap for the Cowboys. Overall, I give it an A. Now we'll just see in 2 to 3 years kind of how things are playing out. I do have one bold prediction that I think Ceedee Lamb will be the Cowboys' best receiver within 2 years. I think he will surpass the ability of Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup, which is not a bad thing, having 3 number 1 capable receivers. That's how highly I think of Ceedee Lamb. All right, so before I get out of here, I definitely want to send a shout out to a guy who was drafted in the 6th round. Wasn't by the Cowboys, but it is sort of Dallas related because this wide receiver went to SMU. And I had the pleasure of watching him the last 2 years. So many receivers went ahead of him that I didn't think belonged ahead of him. But he landed in a good spot in Baltimore. And that's a shout out for James Proche. And the man is incredible. His route running, his hands. He put up insane numbers at SMU. He's an all-time leader in touchdowns, yards, total yards, receptions. So definitely salute to James Proche. And hopefully he lights it up there in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. All right, so yeah, that ends today's show. Like, subscribe, comment, tell me your thoughts on the Cowboys draft. Or if you're not a Cowboys fan, tell me how you feel about your team's draft. Until next time, salute.